Our Older Testament reading comes from the book of Ruth, chapter 3, 1 through 5, and then the end of chapter 4. Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, I need to seek some security for you, so that it may be well with you. Now here is our kinsman Boaz, with whose young women you have been working. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now wash and anoint yourself, and put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." She said to her, "All that you tell me, I will do." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When they came together, the Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without next of kin, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became his nurse. The women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, A son is born to Naomi. They named him Obed. He became father of Jesse, the father of David. The Newer Testament comes from the book of Mark, and I'll be reading just verses 40 through 44. Jesus sat down opposite the treasury and watched the crowd putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which are worth a penny. Then he called his disciples and said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury. For all of them have contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, all she had to live on." These are the words of our ancient tradition. Well, good morning again. I'm so grateful to be worshiping with you and to be invited to preach today. Although I am officially a member here, most of you probably do not know me. I come as often as I am able to the 11 o'clock service, this service. And as JT pointed out, I sit in that back section. I find a spot where the light is more than others. And I take in the music, the prayers, the preaching, the experience. And by the way, I've got to say, this is a better seat for the music. It's quite beautiful. And also, I never noticed that window before. As you can see from your program, I am an ordained minister, and I had served the United Church of Christ in New Brighton for 18 and a half years. And then 2 churches in Hawaii before that. And in that role, what I probably enjoyed most was preaching. So as I've been taking some time away from the local church ministry to care for family, I've really missed preaching. I've missed it so much, in fact, that each Sunday, after hearing the sermons, and many of them are wonderful, but on my way home, I find myself composing the sermon I would have preached. After all, texts have hundreds of sermons in them. And because of this, I need to confess that I'm a little backed up preaching-wise. I have so much to say that I have to warn you, you may have to go on with the rest of the service without me. Just turn the mic off back there. Or you may have to enlist Philip to play me off like they do in the Oscars. Or you may just need to leave me here as I rattle on. I'll lock up after me. No, I promise not to do that. But I thank you again for this opportunity. Now, I have to assume that there is some agreement among us that we are living in such challenging and for many, many people frightening times. I've thought so much about what's happening in our country, and I've decided that what best describes it to me is that our country has an autoimmune disease. Our systems are attacking themselves. The sources of illness are not outside of us, beyond us, but they are within. I have to share with you that one of the things I realized recently is that my tax money is going to the defense of policies that hurt me and people I love.
Talk about it.
Thank you, Ivan. So at all levels, we are seeing and experiencing internal conflict and diminishment of wellness. And it feels so much like people with power and the capacity to effect great change have chosen rather to use those privileges to amass more power, and I'm just going to say it out loud, to amass more wealth upon wealth, rather than to serve their own people. As we sit here today, people have lost access to food, to health care, to living safely in their own communities, to traveling without concern, to expressing their opinions and objections to what's happening. The list goes on. It's an incredible time to be alive. So I mean it, incredible, unbelievable. And I don't know about you, but I so often feel profoundly powerless to really affect any change. I know that I'm probably more expressive about this than maybe you all are used to, but I hope and assume that I'm not alone in these feelings. So I want to share a quick story before I go much further. When I was a young minister on the island of Kauai, I led a youth group at church, and every Sunday evening I would use the church van to take a few of them home. One of them, Noelani, lived in the mountainous parts of that part of the island, and when you got up there were no street lights and certainly no street signs. And it was dark, very, very dark. So when I would take Noelani home, I got used to finding my way by certain posts or fences or branches that leaned into the tree in a certain sense of distance. I learned my way, and after a few weeks, I had no problem getting her home. But one day our youth group activities were earlier, and I was taking the kids home in the daylight. Surprisingly, when it came time to drop off Noelani, I got lost. I couldn't find my way. I lost track of where I was. I didn't see the usual trees and posts, so Noelani had to guide me home. I had gotten used to finding my way in the dark. My friends, I really fear that we are in that same boat. I fear that we are becoming accustomed to finding our way in the dark, that we may not even recognize the way in broad daylight. And this is true in so many regards. For instance, we are so used to our use of technology, now called growing into AI, all of its increasing abilities, that we don't really see the ill effects on our environment. Remember, what's called a cloud is massive computers running all the time, generating heat, using up water. It's got an effect. Or its effects on our relationships. Rarely do I go places where most people aren't just alone on their phones. Or on our health, or poignantly on our youth. I saw a program recently that talked about AI being found to actually help young people who have suicidal ideation to follow through. If we're driving in the daylight, wouldn't we be more enraged and more terrified and more empowered to choose to live differently and save these precious things and these precious people? Or we are so used to incivility that we are confusing what's legal, freedom of speech, for instance, with what's helpful and what's meaningful, or what's nuanced, or complicated, and requires critical thinking. If we were driving in the daylight more, might we see the damage of these and speak differently with each other? If we were driving in the daylight more, might we notice the ways people of privilege take access and opportunity for granted, while people of poverty struggle for social mobility and even the bare essentials of everyday life?
Take your time, preacher.
If we were, as a society, driving in the daylight where we can actually see, understand, and take in the effects and dynamics of racism, sexism, homophobia, economic injustice, wouldn't our hearts actually break over and over, repeated times every day? Wouldn't we want to create more equality, celebrate diversity, and be more inclusive? Wouldn't we desire that all of God's children were treated like children of God, no exceptions? And wouldn't God's creation be tended with more radical appreciation and care because it is our home and our relative? Here's the thing. I think it's because we've become so used to driving in the dark that we don't think we can really make a difference in the ways things are. We're used to it. Our lives aren't that bad. We can live with it. We can find our way. We know how to get there over and over. Now, I chose to invite us to consider the story from the book of Ruth today because I think it offers us a powerful story of people who live in the seeming darkness because of their status in society, but create light even though they are among the most meek. If you remember the beginning of the story, Naomi has 2 sons who marry Moabite women. When they, the sons, and their father all die, Naomi entreats her daughters-in-law to return to their people, where they would be cared for by their own and have more status, just a little more status. One of the young women, Orpah, agrees and goes home. The other, Ruth, stays. She requests and proclaims, "Do not ask me to leave you. Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." I find it interesting how many times this scripture is used in weddings because it's a daughter-in-law speaking to a mother-in-law. Just saying. Shoot. So Naomi and Ruth, both women, both widows, one, Ruth, a foreigner, are among the most powerless in their society. They are wards of the social security system. And we know how much people in power like to take care of wards of the system. They're living in the dark to some extent, and they could continue this way. They could just become used to it and let things be, find their way all the time. At many levels, I'm sure this was true. But in the pericope we read today, this isn't enough for Naomi. She actually drives in the daylight and knows that better is possible. So she finds a way. She encourages Ruth to ingratiate herself to her kinsman Boaz. And eventually, after Boaz has, by the way, gone through the legal and cultural expected processes. I like that, right? When leaders actually follow the rules. And ask me later if you want more on that. It's in the middle of the book. Ruth marries Boaz. is welcomed more fully into their family and clan and bears a son. Now, I hope you noticed, as I did, that what happens next is that the child is handed over to Naomi to nurse, and the women of the neighborhood celebrate with Naomi and Ruth and name the child Obed, who becomes the great ancestor of a man who would be named generations later Jesus. So here's what I hope we take away from this story. Out of acts of love and devotion, through the agency of the most meek and powerless, women, widows, foreigners, potentially in the midst of, I'm going to say it, a queer family, 2 mothers and 1 father, I don't know who's to say. But out of this mix of all kinds of dynamics that most societies might disdain and discard and dismiss, God worked out of all of this, and out of this came a child and a line of humanity that changed the world, quite literally. Whatever we believe about Jesus, the world, whether we see him as fully human or fully divine or both, as the UCC likes to proclaim, the world through him was changed, introduced to a loving God and a sustaining God to whom we all belong, no exceptions. So God worked through that child's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmothers and changed the world. Through the small actions of faithfulness that impact the whole of the future. I want us to drive in the daylight today and see them, to see the brave and devoted choices they made, to see the ways they could, within their circles of influence, however small they were, change things. I want us to see that it's a miracle that this story is in our sacred texts at all. I want to invite us to drive in the daylight and pay attention to the road signs they offer us, because they knew, especially Naomi, that they could affect change, even in the powerlessness, even in their meekness. I heard an account, and I apologize that I don't know the source, of a person who used to go to the White House and sit along the fence and protest every day. This was before the No Kings rallies. When someone asked him why he was doing it alone and often unnoticed, wasn't it futile? He responded that he wasn't doing it believing he could change the injustices, but because he didn't want the injustices to change him. I wonder if this wasn't true for that widow in the temple where Jesus was with his disciples, giving her 2 cents equal to a penny, which was all she had. I'm guessing that she had no delusions of grandeur that her giving would impact the temple in any profound way, but she knew that giving would help her to be herself, to know herself as a person with agency and power, however poor or meek. So I've been sitting quietly in that back corner each week, and I'm able to come to church, and I've been paying attention. I've been watching you, Plymouth Congregational Church. And I want to celebrate with you the ways you are driving in the daylight, the ways you are seeing what needs to be seen and responding to it. The truth is that the darkness can change us if we let it. But driving in the daylight actually empowers us, with God's help, to be agents of change for the good. I see you, Plymouth Church, as you welcome young people not only to share in your worship and church life, but to be heard as they talk to you so honestly and bravely as they did a few weeks ago about mental illness. I see you, Plymouth Church, driving in the daylight and loving these young people and all of their truths. I, who have suffered from depression many times, many years, will never forget on that Sunday when Toby Eichton said, Listen to your heart. Don't be enslaved by your mind. Sitting in that back corner there, where, by the way, I often shed a tear or two, I heard this young man's words and I was changed. Blessed are the meek, for God will work through them and they shall change the world. I see you, Plymouth Church, as you continue to process the experiences of your stunning needleworks, as you have grappled with the stories they tell and have had to allow for unexpected ramifications, but have done the unutterably anguishing thing of driving in the daylight and hearing and seeing the experiences of others, and then making some painful decisions around that. And then, driving in the daylight, I see you seeing them. I see you being willing to be changed so that you can be agents of change and healing for others. God is working through you. I see you who joined Plymouth today. Not only do I notice your red roses, but you, I also see you bringing your lights of love to this source of light. And I challenge you never to shy away from offering your 2 cents, your strength and resources of mind and heart, knowing that God can change the world through you as well. And I see you members who have been faithful and committed for over 50 years. I see that you get it, that the church matters in the world, and this is true more and more and more every day, because it invites us to drive in the daylight in so many ways and to gather as community and to put down our phones and to listen to one another and be together. I see you, Plymouth Church, as you navigate your future with JT, as you ask what it means to be a people of faith in this time and in this place. I see you wondering about your calling as a congregation and wanting to drive in the daylight of our times and both exist and respond in the light. I see you. So I want to tell you that I will miss my little corner here. I have accepted a call to a lovely church in Concord, New Hampshire, closer to my family. I'll no longer be able or have to preach to myself on the drive home because I will be preaching regularly in a congregation. So I want to thank you for being a source of light to me these past couple of years. I see you, Plymouth Church, and I celebrate you. Let us all, in both meekness and in our strengths, have hope in the truth that God's love and ours, through this, we too can change the world. Amen.